what if we can make volunteering like Uber, like Netflix, Deliveroo for doing good?
From the mind of Dragon's Den featured entrepreneur Sanjay Lobo comes a game changer to corporate social responsibility, a one-stop platform empowering companies to make a real impact.
Child of an immigrant family is now an MBE. How the hell does that happen? What the hell is the process?
The process, you don't really know, right? Someone nominates you. We ended up helping thousands of Londoners helped over that period, and that led to the MBE. The good we could deliver was just wonderful, and there was an insane level of effort, I guess. At the end of the day, you cry. First reaction is, I'm not sure I should take this. Is it the right thing, again, for a person of my complexion to take this member of the British Empire thing? Born in the UK in the 70s, all of that stuff around, are you British? All the tick boxes on the forms, all that kind of stuff, you never know what to do.
We come from different backgrounds and different realities, and now we're trying to adapt to this reality.
I think there's a lot of things that don't quite work. I was told to change my name.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was Christopher Hall as a salesperson. There's always those barriers. There's much more acceptance now, that's great. Much more tolerance now, that's great. But underneath that tolerance and acceptance, I think there's always a slightly ugly side as well, which we've seen in the last year in the UK.
We usually start by asking the guest their immigration or immigrant story, but obviously your case is slightly different. You were born and raised in London, yes?
That's right, yeah.
But your family has an immigrant story. So walk me through that, Sanjay, a little bit.
Yeah, sure. My mum was born in Kenya, and her family are actually from Goa, back in India. And my dad was born in Tanzania, and his family are from the Gujarat in India. As lots of people know, East Africa in the 60s had a lot of issues. Lots of folks from Asia were brought into the country to do various different things by, I think, the Brits. And at some point, there was a local rebellion, and Idi Amin and other leaders like that who were like, enough is enough. Our land's for us, and people have to leave. And my mum and her family, and my dad and his family, they actually just their siblings, the brothers and sisters, essentially the kids, the folks that are under 18, moved to London at that time. So that was back in the 60s. I don't know the exact dates. I think very different world back then, but they met at some point and moved into South London, Tooting, which is a very big Asian community, still has a very big Asian community. And I was born in 1976 in a local hospital there.
Amazing. So would you say, because I've spoken to a lot of immigrants in the UK, and obviously, including myself, we have a different, different outlook to life in the UK. Obviously, because we come from different backgrounds and different realities. And now we're trying to adapt to this reality. Do you think the second generation or the next generation, the kids of immigrants, also have a different reality, or it doesn't really change?
So I definitely think we have a different reality. So if I take my example, so born in the UK in the 70s, all of that stuff around, are you British? All the tick boxes on the forms, all that kind of stuff, you never know what to do, and you never know quite which one's the right one to do. And there's many dumb examples through life, like supporting football and which team you support, and do you support England when England play, and if you do support England, dumb stuff like wearing an England shirt, really dumb stuff like that. You feel strange about, which is because you grew up in the 70s and 80s when the UK was a very, very different place. So I think you have a different outlook on stuff. And then I wonder about the next generation. Does the next generation feel as strange about it? I hope less, but I'm guessing there's still an element that's different. I think there's much more acceptance now. That's great. Much more tolerance now. That's great. But underneath that tolerance and acceptance, I think there's always a slightly ugly side as well, which we've seen in the last year in the UK.
Yeah, I reckon there's a lot of maybe unconscious bias, obviously, when you look at different races and different places. I mean, people somehow consciously, subconsciously have that element of bias. But I mean, for me, it's been quite an interesting, from a positive perspective, like an interesting experience. So I feel, diversity and inclusion is like a big part of. And again, I mean, I'm talking from my experience. Like I came to the country just over 4 years ago. So when you speak about the next generation, perhaps things are different now, because my reality is I've been pleasantly surprised. I've just been accepted. Interestingly, and I've said this before in a couple of episodes as well, interestingly, like in this 4 years, I feel home like I've never felt before. I don't know. Also, I just feel London is such an amazing melting pot. There's just people from all across, just different walks of life, religion, places, and a lot of people who have moved in to the country just a couple of years ago. So yeah, I mean, my experience has been maybe a little bit different. I don't know if you resonate with that. You also see a shift.
Sure, absolutely see a shift. And it's quite funny because I guess you made me think back to the 70s and 80s, and actually some of the race riot stuff made me think back as well. But yeah, I feel completely different to back then. And probably, I'm now 48, I probably feel the most British I've ever felt, like in this last 10 years or so. And maybe that's me relaxing personally, maybe. Maybe it's society shifting as well. I think there's a whole load of that going on. I think there's an age thing for sure. And it's kind of interesting you saying the last 4 years, coming in, you feel really welcome and at home, which is very cool. And you've probably got a certain level of confidence, and age comes with, confidence comes with a bit of age and all that kind of stuff. And London is like an incredible melting pot. And there's other places in the UK that have that too, but London led for a long way, I think, on that mix.
Yeah. So it'll be nice to hear your thoughts, because I have. So when I first came in, I had a problem of feeling that I don't belong, and I also didn't fit in. Also, my timing was perhaps not the best, because as soon as I came in, 2 days later, we went into lockdown. So I was completely isolated as well. I was like, oh shit, there's no human beings around me. But I think, so I had two issues. So the first, I'm like, oh shit, I don't sound British. I need to work on my accent. I need to sound more British. I need to work on a British accent. Second, also my name. A lot of people pronounce my name in a different way. So I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should change my name. Maybe I should call myself Ash or Sam or something. So I just felt like I just somehow tried to force myself to fit in. But it wasn't up until, I think, last year or so, where, again, the more people I interacted with, and also, again, just reminding myself as well, because I came here 2 years, I didn't see any human being. We're in lockdown. But then the more people I saw, the more people I interacted with, the more I started to understand the importance or the value of diversity inclusion. And that's when I realized, oh my God, like people here really celebrate diversity. And what I need to do is not try and fit in, but stand out. And that's when everything started changing for me. So, I mean, that's, again, my reality. Just wanted to hear your reality from what it was when you were growing up until now.
Yeah, really interesting. Lots of things you mentioned in there really resonate. So I speak different these days. I don't sound like I did when I was a kid. Actually, I think that's completely different. Different thing. I grew up in South London, had very strong South London accents. And as my job and career went in a different direction to a lot of people I grew up with, I sound completely different. I think my son at some point has said, why do you sound different to your brother, right? It's like my voice has changed so much from where I grew up. Not sure that's to do with being an immigrant versus, social issues, really. The other thing you mentioned in there was your name. That's really interesting, because I don't think, and I really assume this does not happen anymore, but when I entered the working world and I did a bit of sales between, uni jobs and stuff, my first few jobs doing sales, I was told to change my name.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was Christopher Hall as a salesperson.
No way.
Yeah. This would be late 90s, maybe. Late 90s, yeah. Late 90s. I was Christopher Hall when cold calling.
Oh my God.
So very different. I assume that does not happen anymore.
Wow, the world has changed. Wow. And it's interesting also. I mean, 90s is also not that long ago. I mean, we're not saying 500 years ago, like 90s, it was, I mean, okay, we are in 2025 very soon, But yeah, that's not too long ago. And I think, why do you think, the UK is in this place today? I mean, what's shifted?
Yeah, that's interesting. So UK is a social melting pot, right? So it's got a lot of social class things going on that are, I guess, second nature if you live here, and I think can be somewhat divisive across that community. So if you don't sound the right sounds, if you don't quite have the right name, if you didn't quite go to the right school, I think there's a lot of things that don't quite work. To be honest, you might break the mold there, right? So if you come in as an entrepreneur, you may well break into a different part of that society. But if you were part of that society growing up, you're not in that mold or can't break into it, there's always those barriers. I'm not sure that's too different from certain other places in the world, but I guess there's an unspoken known thing in UK class.
I can 100% resonate with that, and it's also because the reason we were in two minds when we're naming this podcast. Obviously it's called the Immigrant Founders Pod, but we said maybe we don't use the word immigrant and we call it something else. But then I don't think it's just the UK, but I think just in general, I mean, when you listen to the word immigrant, there's a lot of negative connotation around the word immigrant because, you're an immigrant, you've asylum or immigrant or refugee, or you taking our jobs and so on. But the reality is, if you look at a lot of, Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, a lot of them are either founded by immigrants or run by immigrant founders and so on. So, I mean, the whole premise also of this pod is to how do we take the power back to the word immigrant? I think that's super important. So you are right. I think for me, maybe the experience has been a little bit different, is because of the nature of my job. Is what I do. And interestingly, creating jobs versus coming here asking for a job, I think that obviously puts me in a different position. So I believe I'm privileged from that perspective and grateful to be in this position as well.
And that could well be what I was reflecting on, like how I feel more British over the last decade.
Because your world has also changed.
Yes, I think over the last 5 years I've become a founder. I employ people. The startup's done reasonably well and it's got recognition and all that kind of stuff. There's something about that.
Yeah. Also, but I think, but we're also the product of our, childhood and the programming and so on. So do you credit anything, that you've achieved so far to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, this is a common feeling, I think, for lots of people, that you've got to try a little bit harder. You've always got to prove yourself, all of that. And to be fair, I think that's common traits in founders anyway, right? There's always a slight chip and something you've got to prove. I'm sure I've read that somewhere before. But because of the upbringing part, I felt like you had to work hard. I think my mum worked really hard on me, and my mum and dad split up when I was very young, so I kind of brought up by my mum with my brother. She worked to bring the money in and whatever, and so I saw that very much as the culture when growing up. I think all of that leads to, well, what then do you do in your career and how hard do you work? And I guess I've always been slightly on the stupid side of hard work, I guess. You're a founder too, so you probably know that feeling, right? But for some reason you can't stop. So I think that's a lot to do with growing up.
Yeah, I can resonate from a family perspective as well, because my mom and dad. So my dad moved to Dubai when he was 18. My mom, when she was 21, she got married to him and moved to Dubai. So yeah, they were immigrants in Dubai as well. And again, that hard work and just go over and beyond. And also because there wasn't any other way. Like there's no choice. You just have to do it. You just have to study. You have to work hard. You just have to do it. Just do better than anyone else, because now you have to create a better livelihood than we had. And then the whole growth mindset from a place of scarcity as well, which is quite interesting, because we just don't have a choice. We just have to work harder.
Yeah, right. Something else you said in there was really interesting, is the word immigrant having these negative connotations, and sounds like you perhaps weren't labelled with that word. And I lived abroad for a bit, so I lived in Spain from 2010, 2015. And I guess the word people associate with me was expat, not immigrant, right? When I'm clearly an immigrant, but because I'm coming into a well-paid job and all of this kind of stuff from the UK, I guess I'm an expat, not an immigrant, which is kind of interesting by itself.
That is actually really interesting. Yeah, something actually even I didn't think about before this.
Oh, not me either. I read that somewhere.
So, Sanjay, walk me through your start of the journey, your career. So, obviously, you've started this business. We're going to talk about this. But what were you doing before this?
What happened earlier? So I did law degree. I went off from school. Went to a fairly normal school. Just worked hard and got great grades. I remember right back then choosing what courses to do and all that kind of stuff. And my brother, who wasn't academic at all, now doing great, but wasn't academic at the time, he never knew what to do. And of course, coming from a slightly Asian family, I guess, there was always pressure to do well and have a successful job and all that kind of stuff. At the time, there was a TV show called LA Law.
Yeah.
So I said I'd be a lawyer. And of course, everyone loves that. So,
that's what you do, doctor, engineer, lawyer,
exactly,
right?
Right, of course. That's it, the classic, right? So somehow I got the grades. And so went to a great uni, University College London. And from that, I hated the law degree, actually thought it was really, really dull. And didn't think I wanted to pursue it as a career. However, most people apply for a job at the start of second year. So at some point, middle of the degree, they apply for jobs. Everyone got a job, and of course I was left there going, "Oh crap! I better apply." And I applied for a few. I got one interview and got the job. I'm very lucky to do. I did some research, managed to say some of the right things, and it's luck, as you know, right? Lots of those things when you're starting off. One interview, got the job. So I became a lawyer, and that was during the first .com bubble. Wasn't joining them for technology or .com stuff. Was joining them because they're an entertainment law firm. Thought that would be really fun. Well, it's not. It's really dull. But this
Expectation versus reality.
Yeah, it's just really fat contracts that are about films, but actually they're just finance arrangements. So it's really, really dull. But this .com thing, they discovered it was going to be big, or they hadn't discovered it, but they realised it was going to be big, and got more involved with e-commerce stuff, with funding rounds, and then bubble burst. Everyone was let go from newly qualified, which I was, to 2 years qualified. So I just qualified and immediately let go. But I got picked up by a company that owned Travelocity. They were called Sabre, big travel technology company. They owned Travelocity, who were like Expedia back at the late 90s, early 2000s. Joined Travelocity, who I guess realised to break into the UK and Europe, they couldn't do it. The brand wasn't strong enough, and there was two big players, Expedia and lastminute.com. We ended up buying lastminute.com, which was a very big deal at the time. One of the, I think, first .com unicorns. And I was right time, right place. I'd been at the company for 5 or so years. To be honest, was thinking of leaving. This came along and I was offered the job to run the legal team. I was still in my 20s, and that was like just a massive, massive jump in career. And again, it's a lot about the hard work you put in and a bit of luck. It was staying and just being there at the right moments. From there, I guess that was a wonderful e-commerce legal job. So one of the best in Europe, and figure out what to do next was actually quite hard, until I got a call about a job in Barcelona. And as an English qualified lawyer, that doesn't come around very often. So I joined a company called Vistaprint, who really fast growing small medium enterprise promotion business, does marketing materials for them, and they're growing like crazy. And at this point, I was still a lawyer. I think just about 30, maybe 31 or so. Joined them as a lawyer to set up their legal function in Europe. That was a lot of fun, but very, very quickly was asked to do more and more things because of the speed they were growing at. And anyone that had a little bit of management experience and a bit of common sense was just asked to do more. So in the first 6 months, I think I was asked, can I build a call center, which meant buying the lands, designing the building, building the building, then filling it with a few hundred call agents, which was loads of fun. I had a great team doing that. It wasn't really me. And then, can I launch PR, and can you do M&A? Well, yes, as the lawyer. Well, you're now corporate dev. that journey just went on for quite a bit. Within a year, I was legal, but not really doing the lawyering anymore. And at some point, ended up running the marketing team for Europe. Was there 7 years in total. So a lot of fun.
Wow. What's interesting, Sanjay, you mentioned luck a few times. Do you believe in luck?
Yeah. I definitely think you create your own luck. But there's luck involved, absolutely. So, there's lots of bits of luck. I think I got a bit lucky with my A-levels. I think I got a bit lucky getting that one interview and just happening to say the right things to get that job in a law firm, which did completely change my life, right? So I grew up in Tooting, not a relatively poor family, and that completely changed life. There's, people I went to school with are bus drivers and bin men and brickies, and that's all cool, but the ability to jump those layers I was talking about before, the ability to break into different layers came from, the opportunities I had. Hard work, sure, which creates some luck, but you've got to have a lucky break too.
So my perspective, whenever things are going my way, and if I credit luck, it helps me feel grounded and humble, because, hey, calm down, there's luck involved. There's, if people believe in God or universe, something is working in your favor. But then when things are not going my way, and I've been in this situation before, things are not going my way, it's just bad luck, so that's been at my own detriment. So every time things are not going my way, it's just bad luck, or this person is luckier than me, that's why this person is succeeding and I'm failing. It's not me, I'm trying to do whatever I can, but it's just bad luck. And since then, I've tried to deliberately somehow, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but this is again just my perspective. It'll be nice to hear yours. I've deliberately started saying there's no such thing as luck, so that I don't get into that trap of blaming everything on just luck. I wasn't lucky enough.
Yep. So I think a lot of what you say there's, I totally agree with. The bit I think is when you are going through those patches where things aren't going your way, which happens, and it feels like you go through this cycle of things going well, things aren't going well, things aren't going well, and then it's just a question of how long those periods are. When things aren't going well, and as a founder, you probably see this a lot, right? You've definitely lived it. I always think like you can work your way out of this, and it's back to that hard work ethic thing. And if you work hard enough, hopefully in the right direction, the luck will happen.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not luck, but a break will happen, right? You kind of know it as the founder grinding away. You kind of know we're going in the right direction. It might not be this week, it might not be this month, it might not be this quarter, but we'll get a break. We'll get a break if we keep at this.
Yeah.
So yeah, is luck the right word? I don't know, but sure, I do believe in luck.
No, and I agree. I mean, when you work hard enough, you do get lucky. But I think for everyone listening, I think it's super important to start with that as well. So that discipline is important, hard work is important because, I mean, and again from an accountability perspective, right? So I mean, you're accountable. The way you're born in any situation, that is obviously out of your control. And that could be, again, we can say, okay, that's luck. It's just like a lottery. You were born here versus somewhere else, in this family versus some other family. Okay. But I think the way you live your life, I think that you should take accountability. I think the way you're born, you can't control, but the way you die is in your control.
Yeah, 100%. So you're right. The discipline and hard work thing, yeah, absolutely. It's got to start with the hard work. Can you get lucky without the hard work? Sure, but that's real luck. Yeah. You can create a lot of work through luck, a lot of luck through hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sanjay, this is of my personal interest and also very inspiring because you're the first MBE on this pod. So, child of an immigrant family is now an MBE. How the hell does that happen? What the hell is the process?
This is a strange one for me because I'll come back to why it's strange. So the process, you don't really know, right? So someone nominates you. I still don't know who it was. I tapped a few people I thought would have nominated me, and it wasn't them. So I'm not completely sure who nominates you. It then goes through some screening processes, but literally you can nominate anyone. So it comes from a nomination, goes through a screening process, and then some people get selected. I got one for work during COVID. So at the time, we were very much focused on elderly adult help. And when COVID came around, that was our service. We were B2C service, connecting a local volunteer with an elderly person who needed help. And of course, that went absolutely crazy as COVID kicked off. We were only a year-old startup at that point. We just got our first developer. We just like the first version of the app that looks something like it does now. Wasn't live when COVID kicked off. Went live about a month later. Lots of frantic manual work going on in the background. But the tech worked really well. We were able to help two London boroughs, London Borough of Lambeth and Hammersmith Fulham, both commissioned us to help their older adults. Local charities were overrun. So, the whole premise of what we do is we can do it at scale. And it's no disrespect to the local charities, people like Age UK. It's still very manual, and there's a certain, there's a certain level they can get to on the volume of help they can give. And then they're maxed out. And both boroughs that occurred, and they came to us to say, hey, can you take this over? For Lambeth, it was replacing food parcels they were sending out to all elderly residents, so massive cost for them. And we could put in place a volunteer who could go and get the local shopping exactly what the elderly person wanted, and saving a lot of money for the borough as well. And we ended up helping thousands of Londoners helped over that period, and that led to the MBE. Now, as I think through that, it was wonderful, right? The good we could deliver was just wonderful, and there was certain moments where I remember breaking down at certain points.
Wow.
The volume was so big, the tech wasn't quite live, and you'd take a phone, because when the app wasn't ready, you'd take a phone call. Essentially, someone in dire straits really needed shopping or medical pickup or whatever, and then you would WhatsApp a whole bunch of volunteers to try and get someone to do the help, and the volunteers were amazing. But as soon as you put the phone down, it rings again, and the volume was just insane. And there was maybe nine of us working on it at the time. But the volume was so much that at the end of the day you'd cry, because the phone would still be ringing, and you couldn't help the volume that was going on. So kind of nuts. So that's quite nice to reflect actually on the question of why the MBE. But it was an insane level of effort, I guess, and amazing stories from the time. The weird bit for me on MBE is what does it stand for? And it stands for Member of the British Empire.
This is why I asked you the question.
So for someone with this complexion, Member of the British Empire is a weird thing to get a medal for. I've got a medal for Member of the British Empire. So what do you do with that, right? So you get an email or a letter or something that says, "Hey, you're up for an MBE." My first reaction to that is, I'm not sure I should take this. First reaction is, I'm not sure I should take this. Is it the right thing, again, for a person of my complexion to take this Member of the British Empire thing? And the second thought is, can it help? So can it help with what we do and the journey I want to go on with OnHand? And the answer to that was absolutely yes, it can. Yes, it can. And day one of it's in the press on like the 1st of January or whatever it is for people that have received this award. Day one, I start getting messages from various companies who really look at that and really respect it, and it's can we work with OnHand? So on the personal perspective, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. It's cool. It's clearly cool, right? It's cool to be recognised. That's wonderful, but it's a bit weird at the same time. But as something that can help the business, it was huge.
Well, congratulations, first of all. I think and I really mean it. I mean that's proper inspirational.
Thank you.
So and well deserved. I mean, whilst you were sharing that story, even I got goosebumps. It's like, oh, because that time was also really, really different. I mean, it was very difficult, and we are in the mental health space, and I know how tough it was. But I mean, you just add age, you just factor that into the mix, and that hard just becomes 10x harder. So I mean, kudos to you and the entire team.
Thank you. It was strangely really stressful, but also lots of elation at that time because of the people that would volunteer for us. We had people who would cycle or motorbike across London, dropping off food to like dozens of people in a few hours. But it was quite immense. The amount of help people gave was actually awesome to see.
Wow. So how did this all start? How did the journey start?
Well, after that career story I told you, I left Vistaprint 2017, made redundant after lots of wonderful growth and wonderful roles there, and at some point was made redundant, which is a really common thing for people listening today. If they're early in careers and this kind of stuff happens to you, it's just so normal. It's redundancy has happened to me at least twice. Now I've been in work 20 years. Doesn't mean you've done badly. It means hey, the company's changed, and that's just the reality of what companies need to do. But after being made redundant, wasn't quite sure what to do next. I did join another startup very quickly, and that was a mistake. Disagreed with the founder pretty much day one. Was never going to work itself out, so I think I quit after 6 months and was on gardening leave and wasn't sure what to do next. And I could have done another opportunity like I'd done before. There's lots of people from Vistaprint starting off new things, very entrepreneurial company. Lots of people starting new things that were similar. And I just didn't want to. I was mid-40s at this point, and I wasn't quite sure what it was that would be next. And maybe it would be consulting, maybe it would be working part-time, maybe all of these things. And at some point I saw an advert or a post on LinkedIn from the charities that had this idea for OnHand. And the charities are big. They're, the Red Crosses and the Water Aids and the Macmillans, the very large charities nationally and internationally. And they had this idea about what if we could make volunteering like Uber, like Netflix, like Deliveroo, where you could browse whenever you want to do some good, find something, go and do it, super flexible, never have to do it again kind of thing. So the opposite of how volunteering is today. It's very hard or it's very time intensive to volunteer, and you've got to be really committed to it every week. And I saw this and I thought, well, I'm living in Brighton, my dad's living in London, he can't quite carry shopping anymore, and I'm struggling with how to solve that. He's lucky he had professional carers where he lived, and they were great. They would do his shopping, but his shopping was like £10 a week, and all of a sudden it's £30 or £40 a week because you've got to factor in the professional carers' time to go and get it. So not quite right? So I thought it could solve that. But I didn't think I was the only one. Everyone has this looking after their parents or relatives issue at some point in their life. And I assumed if there'll be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the same scenario as me that probably need that help. What if tech could solve it? And that was it. I couldn't get it out of my mind. I guess the high growth tech backgrounds was just there. And I think in prior careers or prior roles, I'd always been interested in the social impact side. So when I was at lastminute.com, I was very much involved in their green team. When I was at Vistaprint, I was very involved with looking at the charities we supported and how we could support them more. And that combination of stuff, this felt like a perfect opportunity for me to, okay, I've got the high growth tech, I can bring that, but I'm also really interested in the impact we can have in this space. It was almost, perfect role, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Was pretty much working on it non-stop, 7 days a week before the charity said, hey, yeah, we'd like you to take it forward. So it was the charity's idea, brought me in very early at that point. They had done some work with how to recruit volunteers, again, B2C via Facebook and Instagram, very successfully. Realised they could get people to sign up for, pennies on what they would spend for the sign up. Hadn't gone live to try and help anyone. No technology, as a big spreadsheet of volunteers essentially, and that was it. Yeah, away I went. I thought it was a wonderful idea, and could I do something with it? Was the 2019 starting point.
Before I get into the details of the business, it's interesting you started the business when you were 45. Now, a lot of people listening, I think it becomes very difficult for people in that age bracket to, I've done something all my life, and the risk appetite just keeps on reducing every year, every decade. So I mean, why were you so? Would you say you were risk averse, or why didn't you just go back to the corporate world?
Why didn't I do it when I was 20, or why didn't I go back to corporate?
Yeah.
So there's a few things. One is, I think when I was early 20s or even teenage, I think I had something that was looking at doing that, just probably not understanding it enough. So, I had a friend at school whose brother was selling T-shirts at Camden Market, which I just thought was the coolest thing. The coolest thing possible. Camden Market at that time was super cool. And this guy was just, designing T-shirts, printing them, selling them. There was something about that I absolutely loved. Now, would I have done something like that? Maybe, if I hadn't done so well at school and then got into uni to do law, and that took me on a wonderful career journey. Could that have happened? Maybe. At the same time, once I got that job in law, it's very difficult to say, hey, I'm going to turn my back on this, because this is a completely different career trajectory, and the earning potential I had then was so different to anything I've experienced in my life at that point. So definitely wasn't going to say no, right? This is like this is the golden ticket, right? When I got into do law and then got the job as a lawyer, that was the golden ticket from where I'd come from. So I wasn't going to turn that away. Now, when I'm into my 40s, I think I did try to go back to the corporate world. I think I did apply for some jobs when I was thinking about what to do next. And there's a certain element of I'd become unemployable by that point. Which is probably a common entrepreneur thing. But the career trajectory, I'd been a lawyer, then at Vistaprint for 7 years, I'd flipped around different roles, lots of different roles, ended up running a marketing team and then a global partnerships team. That's great, but actually, would anyone else hire me doing that? No way, right? I've been a marketeer for a year. I wasn't really a marketeer. I'd just been managing the team who were great. I'd been a partnerships lead for a couple of years. That's great, but was any other serious business going to take me on in a lead position? No way. Could I go back to law? Maybe, but that's a bit of a leap. So I kind of made myself unemployable. And then you can factor all of those bits in, including the would I have been entrepreneurial much earlier? And it felt like the right moment.
This is really important, because when you look at, so social media has absolutely romanticized, the whole startup, and everyone's, wants to get into this, the whole startup game. But obviously it's expectation versus reality. There's a lot of things that social media does not tell you or train you for the whole startup world. So the younger generation, especially, people in their 20s, for example, I mean, they have this big FOMO of, oh my God, if I don't do it now, time is running out. But really, I mean, again, it's just perspective. I think I was reading some stats the other day, and actually, the most successful startups are now run by people in their mid-30s to mid-40s. So the probability, because obviously
that's great
you have life experience. Yeah, but no, really, because of course, there are anomalies.
Sure.
But if you average that out, and again, I mean, it obviously makes sense because life experience, work experience, and so on, and now you're able to apply even in your scenario. You from law to marketing to heading different departments, and I mean, just managing so many people as well. I mean, that has now led you to do what you do today.
Yeah, totally. So I really agree with that. So there's something about in your 40s, you're so much more confident than you've been probably throughout your working life, right? And that massively helps. And as anyone trying to start out, you get so much advice. It's like everyone and their dog. Everyone and their milkman's dog wants to give you advice about what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. And almost all of their advice you can't do because it's just too much stuff, but it's massively distracting. And so unless you've got the confidence to ignore it, there's lots of routes to failure, absolute loads of routes to have your business fail. Number one is running out of money, right? So that's the number one thing I've always had in mind. You can't run out of money because that's the end. But the confidence thing, as you're in your 40s, I think that's massive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I didn't think about the confidence element. I just thought maybe it's the experience, but definitely it's the confidence, because when you're younger, yes, you lack that much confidence, and then you just feel sometimes you don't know how to say no. So let me just try this advice and that advice. And then another thing is also, okay, because this person is perhaps more experienced than me, more older than me, they obviously know better than me. But I think the older you get, the more you realize, until the end of our time, we'll just be winging it at life anyway. You know,
No one has any
every
idea.
decade you're like, oh shit, I was an idiot 10 years ago.
No one has any idea, right?
Nope.
So I'd like to say I know how to run this startup and get to the next level. Of course I don't. I'm just going to try a bunch of stuff and see which bits work. And that's the same for anyone else out there who's doing the startup. It's like we don't know how that next bit's going to work. We don't know, but we're going to try it.
But you do it anyway.
Yeah, totally. Going to do it anyway.
No, absolutely.
Something you said in there, a very, very important point, I think, for anyone, the romanticizing. So if you are early in career and you're thinking, I've got to be a founder and whatever else, check the reality a little bit, because I've never worked so hard. Wasn't my plan. At 45, going into this startup stuff, it wasn't my plan. I thought I'd worked hard. I'd been a lawyer. day one in that legal career, I was there till 5 a.m, right? So I'm not unused to hard work, but wow. Maybe it's something about the stress levels that are different, but I don't feel like I've worked as hard ever. So hey, if you're listening in and you're thinking about startup, it's hard work.
I'd like to add to that as well. So again, the perspective or the facade is, I don't want to work 9 to 5. So I want to be my own boss. I'm not going to work 9 to 5. That's why I'm going to start a business. Well, you trade your 9 to 5 for then 24 hours. That's really what happens, right? So, I mean, it's just like really do that reality check before you come in. And also, look at the stats. And we're not discouraging people to start. I mean, I think entrepreneurship is just beautiful. It's amazing. You're able to solve problems and you're able to create livelihoods. I think there's nothing more rewarding as well. People ask me so many times, did you know how hard this whole journey would be? I was like, oh shit, man. Like no. If I knew, I would probably never start. But I'm also grateful that I didn't know.
Correct.
Because I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm not discouraging anyone from getting into it, but get your facts right. I think that's super important because maybe, the right reasons are important. So one, I'm going to have more flexibility or freedom. Well, think again. Second, I'm going to earn a lot of wealth because, I'm a founder, millionaire, billionaire, whatever. The reality is, for the first God knows how many years, you're just bootstrapping and you're eating shit like every single day. You're being, paid less than anybody else. And then, really that whole unicorn and exit and whatever, that is really, unicorns don't exist. I mean, that is why they call unicorns, right? So again, look at the stats. And if you're doing it only from a financial perspective, again, gauge, because you have a probability of making much more money in a job. I mean, lawyer or doctor or so
Absolutely.
On. So do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure what the reason is, right? So you've got to have something that just drives you. Why am I doing this OnHand thing? Yes, I love the idea, but what's driving me? We're into our 6th year. It's really hard work, and what's driving me? I'm not completely sure. Mm-hmm. So you've got to have something that's just telling you to do it. And I remember when I was going to take it on, and I checked in with a couple of former bosses. And to be fair, they're from the corporate world, but everyone was like, "There's no way you should go and do that."
Really?
But there was something that I just wanted to do it. I just really wanted to do it, and that was there's some driving force behind it all.
So you're not sure what that driving force is?
No, I don't know. It's slightly insanity to do a startup.
Oh,
and
absolutely. I think
you've got to be slightly mad.
Yeah. Delusionality, I think, is one of the key factors of any founder. Like, if you're not delusional, also don't start. If you're too rational, don't come into this game.
Correct. Yes.
Also, I think what you're really talking about is purpose, and I think it's okay for your purpose to change over time. When you started, you thought about your father. And, how can I fix that problem? Maybe that has now evolved to something else. And maybe 3 years from now, it's going to be something else. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. But as long as there's something you can anchor it in.
Correct.
Hey, I feel responsible at this point. We've got VCs and angels and all that. I feel responsible to them. And the idea that they can just lose their money, yeah, sure they can. They can afford it, got that. And they get tax benefits and all of that good stuff. But I still feel responsible for it. Not making the return would be a disaster. And so, there's things that drive you that may be different from where you started.
Yeah. What's so you've raised funds and how's that? I mean, I'm thinking, so, walk me through your revenue model. And so how did you entice the VCs off the back of your revenue model? Because it can get a little bit tricky because volunteering, how do you make money? And I think as an investor, that'll be the first question. How the hell do you make money?
So and we met a bunch of angels and, seed VCs who just couldn't get their heads around it.
Yeah.
Is this a charity or is it a business? Which one is it? And to be fair, we weren't completely sure on the model, right? The model coming in, so it was the charity's idea. It wasn't my idea. It was the charity's idea. And they wanted a revenue stream, right? So the original model was, this is B2C, we'll charge the person who receives the help, the older person, my dad, or the relative, literally me. I did pay for my dad, so I was customer number one paying. Terrible. But that's, how awful is your business when you have to pay as the customer? But that's how we started. So we're B2C, charge, the older person, and, we're charging £10 for the help you get. £8 of that was going direct to the charities. We were keeping a platform commission. But as you know, to be a platform commission model, you've got to be Uber size, you've got to be Deliveroo size for that to work out. And it was growing, but not fast enough. The angels really liked it in that first year when we hired. I did fundraise fairly early on, and it was just resonating with people. So the first angel I spoke to, he, from that disastrous startup I joined straight after Vistaprint that I left, he actually followed me from there. He was just interested in what I'd do next and wanted to invest, which was amazing. So hey, silver lining from all of these clouds. And he was going through that personal pain. He was going through the pain of having looked after one of his parents and now onto his second parent, looking after them. So he could see there was something here. Again, he wasn't quite sure, was it a charity or not, but he wanted to invest. And others, I think, just could resonate with the idea. We did get some angel investment from Clearly So, who are a impacts-led angel group. And again, I think they could see the charity side. If it could work, it could be a really impactful thing. When COVID hit, we were still that B2C model, but literally the day when COVID hits, we're charging the wrong person. We're charging an elderly person who'd become overnight the most vulnerable person on the planet. So we had to rethink, right, how are we going to make money? And we immediately stopped charging. We'd just done a fundraise just before COVID. It was the Clearly So one, so we knew we had runway. Weren't sure how we'd make money, and we did those deals with the councils who found money for us helping them. It did save them money too, but that wasn't going to be the growth model. It felt like a one-off, and it very much turned out to be a one-off emergency funding. But I'm going to use the word luck again. We got lucky having met a business earlier in that year when we were still B2C. And you do make some luck. You're absolutely right. It was a Sunday night LinkedIn exchange with the guy that runs the National Innovation Centre for Aging up in Newcastle. He invited us to go to Newcastle, where he introduced us to various different people, including Newcastle Building Society, who in April or May of that COVID year, they got in touch to say, hey, we think you can help engage our people. We've sent them all home. It's COVID, everyone's gone remote. Can you help engage them in doing local social good? And we're happy to pay you to do that. So it's going to be great for our employee engagement. We haven't got a clue how to engage people in this remote world. And all of a sudden, it's this, okay, that's a beautiful virtual circle. You've got corporate who's happy to pay because they're going to get some great impacts data out of this. They're going to get some great impact stories out of this. You've got employees who have local volunteering source forms that have made volunteering really easy. And we've got the end recipient who gets the help without having to pay for it. That's a wonderful virtual circle. So went live with them in summer of 2020 just to make sure it could work. We signed up 10 corporates by the end of that year, which was tiny, really, really tiny. And North Star Ventures, who are based in the Northeast as well. So a lot of good just coming out of that one trip to the Northeast that we made in January of that year, without really knowing why we were doing it, right? LinkedIn chat on a Sunday evening. They invested, and we were like less than 50K in annual recurring revenue, right?
Wow.
So tiny, absolutely tiny at that point. And I think the partner that leads on it for us, he just saw something about where it could go, which, being honest, I probably couldn't see. And very, very keen to invest at that very early stage. We had 10 customers, less than 50K in revenue. And from there, that's the model. That's still the model. We sell into businesses to engage employees in doing local goods, great for well-being and mental health, great for their communities. And from there, we spread into all types of volunteering. So it was older adult stuff. Very quickly, we realized employees cared about that, but they also care about youth mentoring, and they care about homelessness, and they care about climate change. So we added all of these types of activities you can do for social good or environmental action, track all of the impact for that, track the stats, and report that back to the companies. The companies get these beautiful dashboards of the impact they're having, leaderboards and gamification, all of that fun stuff you can have with the platform. At this point, we're around 300 customers, not quite break even, but it's very much within our sights. It feels within our control, in close to multi-million on revenues, and all of that growing really nicely.
That's amazing. What a great idea. Love the pivot, by the way, because we were also in the B2C space and then pivoted to B2B. Again, similar kind of problem, because therapy is expensive, and that one-to-one therapy sessions was like a costly affair for people to embark on. So we're like, okay, now that COVID's hit, well, it wasn't just COVID. I mean, we were trying to move to the B2B space before COVID, but it was really difficult. It was difficult to convince corporates, why is it important for you to take care of your employees' well-being? But then COVID again was our silver lining, with
Massively accelerated
the whole
that.
demand and the conversation around mental health just exploded.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, now we get it. Okay. So yeah, I think so. As a user, if you can walk me through the whole user journey. As a user, I have some like a marketplace kind of thing, so I can just pick and choose the charity of my choice, and I can keep changing it as and when. And I can, is it like a cap? How many things I can do per month, per week, or if you can walk me through that?
No cap, but it's essentially like using Deliveroo, right? It's like, and from day one, even when we were B2C, the consideration set we wanted to be in was, hey, tonight you can, find a date on Tinder, or you could browse for a movie on Netflix, or you could go to the gym, or you could get a takeaway on Deliveroo. That's the consideration set I want to be in. I want when you've got time to do something, why not do something good in your local community? And so that's the concept. And we don't limit you on what you can do. And essentially it's like using Deliveroo, but you're not browsing for a takeaway or a curry or a whatever. You're browsing for an opportunity to do good in your local area or remotely, or take an action that's going to change your lifestyle that will impact the planet in a small way. So yeah, that's it. Deliveroo for doing good.
Love it.
Actually, we have been called Netflix for volunteering, and Uber for volunteering. IBM called us Uber for volunteering. The FT called us Netflix for volunteering, which was cool.
Let's hope people from Uber, Deliveroo, and Netflix are all listening to this pod. Hopefully that'll also bring you some good luck.
Thank you.
So what's next? Where do you see the business going in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so there's again, as you all know, as a founder, there's a lot about focus, right? So for the next 3 years, it feels really obvious to us. We very much started in the SMB space. We worked with companies from literally one employee to a couple of thousands, and we've had that whole mix for the last few years. Where it absolutely feels like we need to be is playing still there, but can we start working with some larger and larger companies, which will continue our growth? And I guess the ambition we want to have for impact is, well, you've got to get to as many people as possible as volunteers to have the kind of seismic impact that we potentially could have with a service like this. So very much focused on enterprise customers. Can we solve the security needs, data protection needs they have, the group volunteering activities they need, the data reporting they need, and all of that is at a slightly different level, a lot of which we've got already, but there's tweaks to it we can make that really do attract tens of thousand business, and we already have a few of those, which is great because they're directly feeding into our roadmaps. The next part of that is international too. We are live in most countries around the world. But essentially it's apps. So you can make it live in lots of places, and it works the same way. We've got hundreds of activities wherever you are in the world. But we're leaning into translations now, and I think we want to make the experience just so much more local. So if you're in Boston, we've got everything under the sun you can possibly do in Boston. But yeah, leaning into international and leaning into larger companies, that's our focus for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that was the one question I was going to ask you, because today people are working remotely, and you're not limited to your 5-mile radius when you're hiring talent. And a lot of people, I think you've got people in South Africa as well. Yeah. We do have people in South Africa, India, and so on. So I mean, if you, as a company, if we're gonna start with an activity, obviously we can't limit it to just a select group of people. So you have that covered already. Yeah,
so we're international with the app, 40 odd countries. We've got hundreds of things you can do in any location, but we want to get better. So we are hiring. We've never had to hire someone to do sourcing of opportunities for us. It's all come to. It's amazing, right? We've got tens of thousands of opportunities, which have come to us mostly word of mouth. A lot of that we went around the UK building that knowledge up. But once a charity knows about you and you're servicing them well, yeah, they tell their friends, and all of a sudden we get multiple referrals every day from the charities directly coming in, which is great. In the UK, right? That works really, really well for us in the UK. It works in other places, and we've got the network effect of employees who also tell us about the charities they're supporting. So there's this lovely network effect that's going on. We want to accelerate that, so we're hiring into a charity partnerships team who will really focus on international and building out that in the right locations for the customers we already have and the ones we want to target.
Amazing. And is there another funding round on the horizon?
We've just completed the top-up rounds from the existing VCs. So we have North Star Ventures, 24 Haymarket also came in 2 or 3 years ago now.
That's the angel network, the angel
24
syndicate.
Haymarket is an angel, it's an angel
yeah.
network, and they came in 2 years ago, 2022, and we've just completed a top-up round with North Star Ventures and 24 Haymarket as well.
So you're focusing on just one full-time job now, because fundraising is a full-time job on top of your full-time job.
We are, I was going to say lucky again. We're lucky in that they've been great. They sit on our boards. They've been great on direction and focus for us. But not having to really do the proper fundraise again and having go out there and speak to a lot of new investors, that was massive. They were both proactive around a lot. Here's where you're at. You've got a certain amount of cash, which you probably could get to break even with. Well, why don't you take some cushion? And that was, it was them being proactive about investing at this point, which saved me a lot of time.
Amazing. Yeah, follow-on rounds, that just changes everything. You've got relationship build, and it's just so much easier because, fundraising, we finished our fundraising last year. It took me about 11 months.
That's incredible.
And really, it's like a full-time job on top of your full-time job. And your runway is finishing, and there's just added pressure. And as a founder, you're always thinking, oh my God, the last thing you want to think is being stressed about making bank for salaries. It's just So for you to have that cushion, I think, and it's one of those as well, right? So, you want to try and fundraise when you don't actually need the money. So you have better negotiation power, and it's still stressful, perhaps a little bit less stressed.
Yeah, totally that. So many things you mentioned in that brief thing that just really resonates. So the running out of money thing has always been in the back of your mind. And it hasn't been for most of this year or maybe the last year as well. And that's the first time in a 6-year journey where it's not in the back of your mind, because it feels like we're on that right trajectory to break even, which has, of course, become so much more of a focus over the last 2 years when raising money has been tighter. You mentioned 11 months. I think our last one was 9 months, very, very similar. And that's got longer, right? It used to be maybe 3 months. If you're lucky, you could do it in 3 months. Maybe 6 months are more normal, but it's got longer. Again, for anyone listening, if you're thinking you're running out of money in a year's time, you should probably be raising already.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sanjay, founders, when they start businesses, they're very aspirational and they want to change the world. I think the way you're changing the world, obviously, it's a great thing that you're doing. hands down, I don't think anyone can deny that. But I think the behavioral change in an individual, I think that is really big. I don't know what's the biggest. At least that's my takeaway. But what do you think is the biggest impact your business does?
Oh, that's a great question. And hopefully we haven't done it yet, right? So I always talk about this journey we want to take people on, and it could be, right now we've got lots of behavioral change type things you could do on the platform. So many of them you might be doing already. So I don't know, a reusable water bottle when we're drinking water every day. You can track doing that on the platform. That's great. And why we put on very simple things like that is we know 9 out of 10 users come back and they'll do more. So we want to take people on a journey of, hey, use the platform, track something very simple you're doing. I don't know, that water bottle might be an example. It might be you using a reusable bag when you do your shopping. Something very simple, but it has a small impact. If I can get you to track that and know you'll come back, well, can I take you on a journey of more good you can do? And if that's step 1, is step 2... listening to a bite-sized talk with someone from the charity world talking about homelessness or any other topic. And if step 3 is, well, you're going to do something in that space, maybe that's just smile to a homeless person as you walk past them. And in step 4, I'm going to get you to do your DBS checks. So you can get really involved in one-to-one help. And in step 5, I'm going to take you on a course on loneliness training and befriending calls, which step 6 is, hey, you're going to start making befriending calls in a spare moment to isolated and elderly folks in the UK. And can I take you on that journey where there's, I don't know, what's step 10, but it's something really, really impactful. And the more people we can get on to doing that type of growth on good, I think we can have some serious impact. And at this point, we're 100,000 users or so, then there's something different, which is more recent. We start to think about what the skill sets that we have within the companies that work with us. We have a consultancy that's recently signed up, and their request was, how can we use the skills from our consultants? This is one of the top consultants in the world, and we know we work on project basis, but we also have time between projects where we could be doing something as a group that could tremendously impact a charity. And so we've approached a number of charities around, well, what if we could really teach about how to use AI over the next year that will dramatically change your charity. And we have some in the mentoring space who, well, we process tens of thousands of applications every year, but we've got a team of 5, right? So could AI help us with that? Absolutely it could. And how transformational will that be for your business? Well, it may allow us to do something completely separate in an adjacent space. And many other examples like that. So it feels like we're still on the journey, and hopefully we haven't delivered the type of impact we can in the future.
I like how you say, hopefully we haven't delivered the type of impact. I love that. Wow, that's amazing. And I thought about the behavioral change. I didn't think that you're taking it to that next level. That's super interesting. Also, it's amazing how companies are also approaching you and actively giving you ideas. That also goes to show the impact that you're able to make on those individuals.
Hey, look, I think the world's changed. So when we started 5 years ago, we didn't know there would be this responsible business wave. There's a trend that's starting. I think we're still really, really early on this responsible business wave, but you can see it. It's B Corps, it's impact reports, it's investors advocating at board level for doing something different on environments. But there's too many of those noises. That there is definitely a trend on responsible business that's changing, and I think it's a very large change in the working world. What does it mean to be a responsible business? I think we're seeing a massive shift in what that means.
Yeah, and I think really, people can cut through the bullshit. So, there's one thing, from a surface level, advocating it, but not executing. So I think it's one of those, right? Because people buy from people don't buy from companies. And ultimately, you can have the best product under the sun, but if you're not a good company, if you're not a good employer, if you're not a good collective people, I don't want to give you my money.
Yeah, totally. So we certainly saw that. When we started selling into B2B, we'd absolutely have companies that was just a tick the box. And that's less and less. It's almost, we never see the tick the box exercise anymore. We want to have impact. Our people demand it. We want to engage them. We want to have the best people. We want to retain them. Our customers expect this of us. We want to do it because it's the right thing to do with our partners. Can we do it with our partners? So that conversation is massively shifted from, we need to do this because, someone's saying somewhere, I need to tick a box. Almost literally word for word. So yeah, we want to be a responsible business. We just want to. It's massive generational shift in work.
It's amazing. The more you're progressing, the more lucky you're getting. I hope you keep getting luckier month on month, year on year, because you're doing a fantastic job, Sanjay. The few people who come on the pod, and I do tell them that we will look into your business as in at for Plum, because it's super interesting, and that's definitely you will get a call from us.
Thank you.
Because I think it's so important, and hopefully that will also impact our people, which is, I think, important for me and for the collective of people that we're at. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Sanjay, you are doing amazingly. I hope you keep doing the great stuff that you do. You've built a great business. You are an MBE. You've achieved so much in life. But looking back to your younger self, what advice would you give that person growing up in Tooting?
In Tooting. It's probably going to sound counterintuitive, but probably don't work as hard. Take it all less seriously. It's what does it matter in 20, 30 years? Maybe you can leave a legacy. That'd be amazing. But the shot of doing that is tight. It hardly ever happens. And then what do you look back on? And so I guess it's don't regret anything in life is probably the big thing. There's no way I could stop doing this OnHand thing. It feels like a force that's driving me to do it, and I don't want to look back at say I dropped it at some point. So yeah, don't regret anything.
Don't sweat the little things. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sanjay. Absolute pleasure talking to you today, and we will connect.
Thank you very much for the invite. It's been a pleasure speaking.
Thank you.